What is happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here. It is good to be back. It is even better to be back live for you, the folks at home, tuning in to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Greatly appreciate the kind words that I've been given these last, I'd say, 6 weeks since I did my little, break, if you will, little bit of a break in the action, much needed, right, for all of us. The good side of that is these Buffalo Sabres, what they've been doing, what season they've had. It's been a remarkable run of a season for the Buffalo Sabres this year, and obviously they're playing right now against the Boston Bruins. But wanted to hop on here and just say that this is the season 10 premiere, the 10th season in which I'll be covering the Buffalo Bills. It's incredible for this podcast, for this show. I can't wrap my head around that. It's pretty crazy. When I came to that kind of realization, I thought, okay, my next episode, which is the first episode back from what was a crazy offseason, would be one that I thought we got to cover a lot of different things, but first and foremost, we have to cover that. We have to cover the fact that this was the 10th episodes or 10th season premiere tonight here live. So you guys that are tuning in right now, if you guys want to fire away your comments in the comments section below, I really appreciate it. I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of I guess you could say a little bit of a top countdown, if you will, of the best, headlines that surround the Buffalo Bills. And this was a season that I'm still at a loss for words over how this season ended, which was the 25-26 season. And I'm even still at a loss for words of how the 26 season offseason kind of started, right? With the decision to move on and fire Sean McDermott, which was one that I think came as a shock, but not a surprise to everybody. So to start, I do think it's worthy that the last episode I recorded was with Erin McGuire. She came on, Rochester native, diehard Buffalo Bills fan. She's in the political news kind of ranks, and we talked all about the Buffalo Bills and the decision they made to move on from Sean McDermott. But I think this offseason is one that is really important because it really starts with the fact that the McDermott era is completely over. This era is done and over with, and all the decisions that have been made since are decisions that are based on that fact that that era is done. That not only is it a little bit of a change of the guard from one head coach to another, but I don't think you could find two real polar opposite type coaches than that of Sean McDermott and Joe Brady. And Joe Brady is somebody that I think was bound to get this opportunity. It was set in stone that at some point he would get this opportunity. The fact that he did get this opportunity kind of showed that. And now that I look back, I feel like this was his opportunity to gain no matter what, they say as far as we wanted to fire McDermott to kind of move in a different direction. Really felt like it was Joe Brady's job to win in hindsight. And the prospects of that, how does that look for Josh Allen? Is it really Josh Allen's decision? How much of a say did he have in that? You break that down, it's really simple. I think the Bills decided that it was time for a fresh voice, that they could only go as far as they could go with Sean, that they needed to go in a different direction, and they went in that different direction with a guy that was already well-respected by the players, by the team, and was a guy that I think really creates not that much of a turnover. The guy was in the building, in the organization, and was somebody that I think a lot of the players trusted, and that somebody is Joe Brady. Now, when the Bills decided to go with Joe Brady, I felt like that was kind of a lazy hire at the time. Now, as time has passed, I'm really happy that I was given the chance to kind of let that marinate and, as I just said, kind of value that hire for what it is. What it is the team's best player, one of the best players in the National Football League, really wanted to just say, hey, look, I like working with Joe Brady. I've worked with Joe Brady for a number of years now. I feel like he's ready to take that next step. And I feel like with him, we could be ready to take that next step too if Joe was put in a position of power, which is the head coach. And what type of decisions would Joe Brady make as a new first-time head coach? What would those decisions look like? Would those decisions be based on scheme? Would they be based on personality? What type of coaching staff is Joe Brady going to try to bring in? And to me, that was my biggest question mark with Joe Brady. Or anytime a team turns a new leaf with a new coach, new head coach, what type of assistants, what type of coordinators is he going to bring in? So this is all, kind of what dictates the types of players that the Buffalo Bills bring in. And a longtime assistant of the New Orleans Saints comes in as our OC when really we all know that Joe Brady is going to run this offense, right? But longtime uh, offensive coaches around Joe Brady, who has been a longtime offensive coach in his own right. And then you throw in the hiring of Jim Leonhard as the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator, which alludes to the fact of a defensive scheme change. And what type of players would fit a 3-4 better than Sean McDermott's, kind of Rubik's Cube 4-2-5 that was this bend but don't break defense that would bend sometimes and break some other times, that I think a lot of people got sick and tired of watching in the playoffs, including myself, including probably you, and including Terry Pagula and Brandon Bean. So I think as time has kind of settled, I've come to terms with the fact as to why they decided to fire McDermott. And quite frankly, I came to terms with the decision to fire McDermott really relatively quickly. But I think how they did it, the optics in which they made that decision, were what really took a lot of people by surprise. So they decide to bring up Joe Brady. Joe Brady's the next guy, and this has got to work. Quite simply, wins, losses, however which way you want to slice it, whether it's offensive success, Joe Brady needs to get the Bills to a Super Bowl. And that's a very hard thing to do for any head coach, let alone one in their first year as a head coach. We're in like this new era of the National Football League in which coaches that have tenure, Mike Tomlin, Harbaugh in Baltimore, and Sean McDermott, really it's a what have you done for me lately business. If you make it to the playoffs with an elite quarterback like a Josh Allen, like a Lamar Jackson, and go, one and done or two and done, then that kind of reflects on you as a head coach. Like, hey, we've done this so many times. We've come so close so many times. What's it going to take? And I do think Joe Brady does offer a different flair, a different attitude, a little bit of a different, refreshing moxie that, 9 years into Sean McDermott being the head coach of this team, felt like what more could they do? Where could they go from here that they haven't been already? And that could be, a little bit of a what have you done for me lately recency bias, or kind of like a be careful what you wish for, as I put, because Sean McDermott really did a wonderful job as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills in terms of where he started with the team to where he ended with the team. I think he left the team much better than how you found it, and I think that that's such an old cliche, but great coaches usually leave teams better than how they found them. And Sean McDermott, I think, did that in ways that even Bill Belichick didn't do as a member of the New England Patriots coaching staff. So there's a lot to be said for the entire, you know, situation. A lot to be said for it. Um, I think that Joe Brady will offer a new look to this team, a little bit of a new moxie. Maybe he'll feel a little bit more empowered as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills to kind of run the offense how he sees fit. Should have really been doing that anyway, but I think maybe he'll throw a little bit more out there. And obviously, I think the biggest move that the Buffalo Bills made this offseason so far, Buffalo trades for wide receiver DJ Moore. And when this came across the ticker, I mean, it was only a matter of time before the Bills really found a move that would allow them to make a move without just for the sake of making a move. I mean, all the fans, myself included, really wanted the Bills to make a move for a wide receiver. And yes, it's easier said than done to just say, hey, go out and get a wide receiver. Let's go out and get a wide receiver that can make this team, make this offense that much more dynamic. And I think DJ Moore does that. Now, the compensation in which they had to give up in order to get a guy like DJ Moore is what has fans a little bit perplexed. Trading away, a second round draft choice wasn't what the fans wanted. But those same fans that say that wanted the Bills to trade for a DJ Moore. So you can't be too picky in the sense of making a move and not liking the compensation of what that move represents. DJ Moore is a solid veteran player in this league that has put forth solid production in seasons without much of a quarterback throwing him the ball, right? Without much of a quarterback throwing him the ball, that I think is safe to say that Josh Allen is the best quarterback that DJ Moore has ever worked with. So when I look at this in the grand scheme of things, is DJ Moore a player that makes the Bills offense better? I think so. Is DJ Moore a player that provides the Bills with a new look on offense that they haven't had in quite some time since the days of Stephon Diggs in his prime? I think so. Is there a learning curve? And that's always a question that I have for guys coming on to any new team. Is there a real learning curve for DJ Moore? I don't think so. I don't think so because DJ Moore has played in this Joe Brady offense. So granted, it's been a few years, but I think DJ Moore is ready to play with a quarterback like Josh Allen, be utilized in an offense at a higher clip than what he was last year in a pretty loaded Chicago, kind of weaponry, whereas here the cupboard has been pretty bare for quite some time. So DJ Moore gets a chance to go to a team with an elite quarterback like Josh. DJ Moore gets a chance to play in an offense that he's played within, really hit the ground running, and I think he's actually going to make the rest of the offensive weapons around him better. And this goes without saying, but I also think that this is not the last wide receiver move that we see. To Pitzer's point, we still need another wide receiver. We are one injury away from a worse wide receiver group than last year. Technically two, right? Two. If DJ Moore got hurt, and if Khalil Shakir got hurt, then we'd really be hurting, right? Then we'd be forcing Keon Coleman to play within a role that we're just not comfortable with him in that role just yet. Doesn't mean that we won't see him in that role, but we're just not comfortable to really throw the hammer down and say, this is the guy that's going to be, our guy, if two guys go down. To Pitzer's point, I think that the question as to whether or not the Bills have a reason to go out and get a wide receiver is a good question. That's a fair question. The Bills should still be looking for a quality wideout in this draft. And there are, quality wideouts in this draft. Pop the glasses on here, the new specs, because I want to take a look at some of those wideouts and just rattle off some names for you guys in terms of, names that I think are quality names to target. So pulling this up here, I'm going to read this off on my phone just because it's a little bit easier for me rather than minimizing this window and starting this whole thing over again. But looking at this from the perspective of who could the Bills target, this draft is not the best draft. This draft has players in it that I think are good, not great. Overall, as a class of a draft class, but a positional draft class, I like a lot of the wide receivers in this draft. I like Mekhi Lemon. I like Carnell Tate. I like Jordan Tyson. I like Denzel Boston. And I like Casey Concepcion. Also Omar Cooper. I like him. I like Chris Brazil a lot. So there's 7 or 8 names that I just rattled off for you guys that I like, and they're wide receivers that I think could make a difference for this Buffalo Bills team in ways that we haven't really seen rookie wide receivers do. And yeah, I'm throwing Keon Coleman's name out there because Keon Coleman came onto this team and he just simply did not fulfill what the Bills wanted from him in these first 2 seasons. That does not mean that he can't. That does not mean that he won't. It's just thus far he has not fulfilled what we've wanted. So to Pitzer's point, I think that there are guys out here that, can make a difference in this draft. And I also think there's a veteran that should be brought back, and Jim Graham, to tee off on that, bring back Cooks. Brandon Cooks I liked. Brandon Cooks did really everything he was supposed to do in a short, kind of minimized window, right? Coming onto a team late, showed really the true veteran, gamer that he is for stepping onto the team and making an impact and catching a ball. Yes, catching a ball that was a very tough one to catch that they said he didn't catch. So one that was ripped out of his hands when he was already down. So, but back to DJ Moore. I can't complain about this move because I wanted the Bills to go out, get a wide receiver. I wanted the Bills to be aggressive. I wanted the Bills to get a guy that I just feel makes the team better. And I think DJ Moore does that. Now, is DJ Moore like a bona fide, elite wide receiver 1? No, I wouldn't tell you that. But is he somebody that's a better wide receiver 1 than what we've had the last couple of years? 100%. Now, the investment that is Josh Allen, what is needed from Josh Allen each and every year, what Buffalo demands to a fault of Josh Allen each and every week, I think could be, dare I say it, a little more of a demand. And what I mean by that is what's up front. What's up front in front of Josh Allen, that offensive line? What is that offensive line going to look like? Well, to be quite honest with you, that offensive line is going to look a lot different than in previous years. I'm very thankful that the Buffalo Bills were able to retain and keep Connor McGovern. I didn't anticipate that. I don't think many Buffalo Bills fans did either. The fact that he stuck around, the fact that he stayed on board was huge for this offense and huge for this team. But Cedric Van Pran-Granger, what's the situation with Ryan Vandemark? He gets offer sheeted, restricted free agency, all that stuff. What will happen with that? Only time will tell. But Deion Dawkins also getting a little bit older. So could we see the Bills invest in the tackle position in this draft? Quite possibly. I think it's a fair, thought to have. I also think it's a fair thought to have that you had to pick one between David Edwards and Connor McGovern. And I think the Bills picked the right player out of those two to retain. David Edwards got a huge deal from the New Orleans Saints, and I don't think the Bills were in a position to give him that type of money in general. I also think that Connor McGovern is one of the best centers in the game. So keeping that in a year for Josh Allen that's going to see more change, than really any. Despite Joe Brady being here, it is a change. He's changing head coaches. It's the biggest change he's ever experienced. They didn't want it to be too big of a change by bringing in a guy that's already in the building, promoting from within, but it's still going to be a change. And that offensive line changing is going to be very intriguing come training camp time. The most intriguing storyline for me is this Jim Leonhard move. I talked about it from the beginning, switching from a 4-2-5, 4-down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs, and or whoever those DBs represent. That's what made that defense so, I guess, tricky, right? That 5th DB, is it more of a safety? Is it more of a linebacker? Is it more of a corner? Sean McDermott would kind of try to mix those players around that he viewed as valuable, in terms of the 5th guy out of those 5 in that secondary, and lining up as one, even though you might not be, a member of the secondary in that secondary type position formation wise on the field. A 3-4 is very different. A 3-4 is a defense I've always preferred, like a base 4-3, 4-down linemen, 3 linebackers, 2 safeties behind those linebackers, and 2 corners, right? Depending on the offense that you're lining up against, but that's what I've always liked. A 4-3, 4 down, 3 behind. That's 7, 2 and 2, right? 2 corners and 2 safeties. Hopefully I said that right. I think I did. God willing. It's been a long day, but 4-2-5, as I just broke it down, 3-4, 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. So who is that 4th linebacker that's going to go from having his hand in the dirt to standing tall, right? And I would assume that is a very tough decision for the Bills coaching staff, because they did bring in Bradley Chubb. Is Bradley Chubb going to be that guy, or is Greg Rousseau going to be that guy? Or are Chubb and Rousseau going to be on the line? And are we going to see like Dorian Williams and Matt Milano on the field a lot more at the same time, as well as Terrell Bernard, as well as maybe another linebacker that they pick up or that they draft, right? That could be a huge position in need for this type of defense, depending on how they view the rest of the defense. And I love Matt Milano. I think, he's done a phenomenal job, but I also know that he's probably on the back 9 rather than the front 9, right? And he's got more years behind him than he does ahead of him. So do they get like an Energizer Bunny type 3-4 linebacker that can run, sideline to sideline and do the things that Dorian Williams can do, maybe just at a better level? I think that's a possibility in the draft, whether it's first round, third round. Do the Bills trade down from 26 to acquire another player, another pick to take another player? Of course, there's a lot of moving parts here, but I like what the Bills have done so far in terms of how they've attacked this defense. More than anything, the DJ Moore move was inevitable. To some degree, any wide receiver move was looked at by myself as inevitable, right? But this 4-2-5 to 4-2-5 to 3-4 switch was not anticipated, right? At the level that it is being enacted. Jim Leonhard is going to make sure that this defense goes after whoever's got the ball and maybe who doesn't have the ball. This defense could be really feisty and very gritty in comparison to Sean McDermott's defenses that were really forced to be on their P's and Q's, know their X's, know their O's, and know, where they need to be positionally. It was a very methodical, intricate type defense, whereas Jim Leonhard's, I think, is just going to be a little bit more free, a little bit more wild, and a little bit more aggressive than what we've seen in the last, 8-9 years, the McDermott era, whether it was McDermott or Frazier or Babich, who I really don't think did a good job. I thought, Leslie Frazier had his faults, but if I were to take Leslie Frazier at his best and Bobby Babich at his best, I'd take Leslie Frazier. I didn't think Bobby Babich did quite a good job calling plays defensively. Case in point, the final divisional round game, I thought that was the best Bo Nix had ever looked, and that says a lot, right, for a playoff game, and late in that game he goes down, he gets hurt. I think that's why Bobby Babich is no longer in Buffalo, along with Sean McDermott, in the grand scheme of things. So Bradley Chubb is a big part of what the Bills want to do. And I roll my eyes a little bit at the Bradley Chubb move because it's another 28, 29 plus defensive end that has had some injuries, that has not been what he was post this injury. Did he have a bad year last year? No, I think he had like 8.5 sacks or something like that off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but was he what he was before? No. And is he going to continue to be what he was before? No. He's getting older, and now he's on another new team, his third team in his career. And defensive ends really are passed around like hotcakes these days. You know, Joey Bosa, he'll be on a new team again. And I liked what Joey Bosa brought to the Buffalo Bills from weeks 1 to, let's just say, 8. And then 9, 10, 11 started to dwindle. And then the back end of the season, we really just didn't see enough from Joey Bosa, which I think is why they went in the direction of getting somebody in here that put forth a full season last year on a rough defense and was able to make the most of the opportunities that he had, I guess you could say. And maybe somebody that caused problems for the Bills themselves. You know, Miami did beat Buffalo this year. I'd have to go back and look at the stat sheet of Bradley Chubb that day, but I know that he's a dynamic pass rusher, and I know that he's very physical and extremely athletic. So do I like the move? I think it was just one they had to make no matter what, you know, just like the DJ Moore move. So these are moves that they had to make. Does that mean that I don't think they're good moves? I think they're solid moves, but they're moves that I expected for these types of positions, and these types of players are out there on the market via trade and or free agency. So those are the moves that I would expect the Buffalo Bills to go out and make as a team that's trying to do something that it's never done in winning a Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history and getting back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1993. So Pitzer puts out another comment. I think we are paying Milano hefty dead cap money. Can't see them bringing him back and paying even more. No, but what I was referring to with Milano is that, you know, that type of player in his prime, which he is no longer in, is the type of player that they need to add to this defense. And whether they find that, whether they feel they already have that, I do really like Dorian Williams, but I do think they'll need just a little bit more. Their depth at linebacker is extremely thin. Terrell Bernard was down the majority of the year this year. Shaq Thompson, a veteran, filled in mostly for Terrell Bernard. I feel like they need a lot more there, and I'd like to see, you know, a draft pick or two, maybe even 2 draft picks invested into the linebacker core and unit as a whole. And I think they're remaking this defense more than anything this offseason. It's going out and getting a weapon for Josh, and they did that. They got DJ Moore. Maybe they go out, get another weapon for Josh, right? Trade down from 26 to the, you know, 30s to get another pick at 60, right? And, you know, then you get 2 players for 1 pick. They did that a few years back. I just don't think they took the right guy with Keon Coleman. I liked Dwayne Carter before he got hurt. Just don't think they took the right guy at the time with Keon. Now, that's not to say that Keon can't turn it around. I'd love to have faith. I don't want to kick the guy while he's down. But I also think that they need to push Keon Coleman. DJ Moore brought in to push guys like Keon Coleman and even guys like Khalil Shakir, who will be coming off of a surgery to his leg, suffered a leg injury at the end of the year. So, you know, there's the 3 initials, right? The NFL, not for long, right? This is a league that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you put forth an effort for a team, you're replaceable, no matter who you are. I never thought that I'd live to see Peyton Manning play on another team. Never thought I'd live to see Brett Favre play on another team. Never thought I'd live to see Tom Brady play on another team. Drew Brees, greatest free agent signing of all time, goes from the Chargers with a bum shoulder to 15 years in New Orleans, a Super Bowl, and a lot of really good years. So everybody's expendable. Everybody at one point or another has their time where their team says, you know what, thanks, but we're going to go in a different direction. And I think there's a lot of decisions that need to be made for within that. Thank you, but we're going to go in a different direction. Thank you, but we feel like this is a better. And, Matt Milano, DeMar Hamlin, with Sidney Gardner Johnson coming in, looking like he's going to be a safety, at least at the very least in the secondary. They just Geno Lewis or Geno Stone, I think I might have said, or Geno Lewis, Geno Stone, safety for the Bills that they just signed from Cincinnati. I'm blanking on the name. Geno Stone. So yeah, a veteran guy that is young enough, but a veteran, like a young veteran. Does that make sense? 26 years old, and he started in this league since he was drafted. You know what I mean? That was 6 years ago. So it just goes to show you, drafted at 20 and starting in this league the last 6 years. I just feel like they've got more experience at those positions with better success than some of the guys that they've had. I just think it's very telling indeed that they've made a lot of drastic moves on the defensive side of the ball rather than the offense. They felt that Sean McDermott's defense was not good enough anymore, and they were not going to give it another year to try. They had already done that. Josh Allen's turning 30, and I know for certain that Josh Allen's thinking to himself, I've only got so many years left before I dedicate my heart to more than just football. My family, my child, there's just a lot of different factors here. The clock is definitely ticking. I don't want to use the old analogy that was used ad nauseum by ESPN about windows and windows being closed or open. I'm not a window guy. Like that's not my thing. I don't really need to do that. But what I do need to say is that you can only kick the can down the road so many times in contract restructures, restructuring X, restructuring Y, restructuring Z. Having Josh Allen do the same thing, restructuring his deal to the tune of $80 million a year in 2-3 years from now, just alludes to the fact that I don't think Brandon Beane feels like if this stuff doesn't work in these next 2 years, I'm not going to be here anyway. Kind of paraphrasing what I think Brandon Beane is thinking here. I'm not going to be here anyway, so who cares what this does to the cap, 2-3 years from now? Where I look at that and say, man, that's some grimy stuff, because if he leaves the Bills worse off than how he joined it, then he really did a horrible job. He really did a horrible job. In the grand scheme of things, in the Josh Allen era, if the Bills are worse off than how Brandon Beane found them, which could very well be the case, then he did a pitiful job as the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. And I think that a lot of people are starting to realize, you go back and you just look at the track record of those picks. I did that in a previous episode. I won't do it again. It's been underwhelming these last few years, and teams that are, Super Bowl caliber teams are built in the NFL draft. You need your GM to be able to help you, get to that level via the draft and get to that next level by solid drafting. So there you have it. I really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. It's great to be back. Season 10 of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. If you're looking at it in seasons, tonight was the season 10 premiere. Started this show back in January, actually, of 2016, covering Super Bowl 50, Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos, and just continued rolling ever since. So I had the chance to meet some really great people, be part of some really great events, look forward to being a part of more in the future, and look forward to working with some local businesses in my area to help promote local businesses and local charities and things like that. So stay tuned. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'll see you next week right here live at 8 on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network, as well as anywhere you find your podcasts, whether it's Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Thomas Take Sports Podcast, and follow along. Don't miss a beat, because I'm not going anywhere.